Welcome to One on One on God 101. Our guest today is author, podcaster, public speaker, Rachel Wojo. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Julie. How fun is this?
It is fun. And most of all, I love um, the most recent book you wrote is called Desperate Prayers. And it came out probably a few months ago. This is January 2024, as we're 2025, as we're recording this. Um, And, here in LA where I live, I know you live in Columbus, Ohio. LA's been through a lot with the fires and a lot of desperate prayers.
Yeah.
Uh, why did you write this book?
My heart goes out to, first of all of those people. I can't imagine the horrific circumstances that so many have endured. One of the stories that I heard that just really broke my heart, which ties right into why I wrote Desperate Prayers, was of a special needs mama who had to leave her son, adult son, in order to go get help. And when she came back, her little carriage house where he lived was burnt to the ground. And I just
Mm,
sobbed. I'll be honest, I sobbed over that story because I have been in that situation, not her circumstances, but I was the mom of a special needs child who lived to be 22 years old. And I really had to figure out prayer for sure because God, I had to know if he was real or not. I couldn't rely on the faith of my parents. And that really is why I wrote the book. When I finally got to the place where I could write again, my sweet Taylor passed away January 2nd, 2019. And when I arrived at this place where I knew God was speaking to my heart and saying I needed to write again, I was like, Lord, what am I supposed to write about? And he said, that is what you are to write about. You're to write about the conversations that you've had with me and how you've learned to talk with me and help other people on that journey. So that is the crux of why I wrote the book. And I appreciate you so much asking me.
uh, what you do is, correct me if I'm wrong, you look at today's problems through the lens of God's word, and you look for solution to today's problems in the Bible.
Right?
Um, a lot of people are intimidated by reading the Bible. A lot of people are intimidated. I don't know how to pray. I was
Yeah.
one of those people, and I'm sure you were until you started. What advice can you give to someone who's listening, no matter what desperate situation they are experiencing in their life? Um, how do they go to God with their problems?
You know, I think so many of us feel like we have to have it all together before we go to God. And exactly, it's the opposite. We just need to go to Him just as we are with all those big emotions. God created those big emotions, He can handle them, right? And so, creating that habit of just going to Him with our emotions, with our needs, with who we are in that moment is so critical. I know for me that when I experienced my daughter suffering and I just felt like God didn't understand. And I had developed a relationship with him enough to where I could go to him and be honest about my feelings. So I said to the Lord in prayer, Lord, you don't know what it's like to watch your child suffer and die. And he said back, his spirit spoke back to my heart and said, oh, yes, I do. I watched my son suffer and die for you. And it was such a big moment for me to have that spiritual understanding. If I, as a parent, could love my daughter so much that I didn't want her to suffer, imagine how much greater God's love for us has to be as he watched his son suffer for us.
Well said. In addition, not only has God had to watch his son die for us, but he was sent here to die in that way
Mhm.
for us
Right?
so that we would have a pathway back to him.
Yes.
It's Jesus dying on the cross, in my opinion, is the greatest love story ever
Yeah.
told, right? So
Absolutely, absolutely. So that moment though, imagine when he was on the cross and he said, God, why have you forsaken me? The separation, had to be so brutal. That is the only moment where we know that not only was Jesus physically separated from God the Father, but he was emotionally and spiritually separated from God because sin entered on him, and sin can't be in the presence of God. And so for that moment, he felt abandoned. He felt all of those things that we feel: rejection, forsaken. And I just am so thankful that that is what opens the door for us to be able to communicate with God and for us to have that opportunity to pray.
In your opinion, is there a right or wrong way to pray?
I don't think so. I really don't. For the longest time, I had a little post it on my desk that said, drop prayer perfectionism. In other words, stop thinking that it has to be one right way or one particular fashion, or you have to be in this situation or that situation. Thankfully, God can hear us wherever and whenever. And we have those examples in the Bible that show us that. Jonah in the belly of a whale, Gideon by a wine press, Jacob on a mountain in the valley, David in all those crazy places, a cave, just so many places. And so we know that God can hear us wherever we are.
Do you have a favorite strange, place where you pray, or is it, "I grab it when I can, whether I'm driving or, you know, uh, insomnia or taking a shower?" Like, what's your prayer life look like?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned those last two just applied to me in the last 24 hours: insomnia and the shower. So you've nailed it. But I will say that there are some places on earth that I have stood and thought, wow, God, the fact that you created this just blows me away. And I feel like some of those moments in nature really allow you an opportunity to understand a little bit of the vastness of God.
What takeaway advice can you give to someone listening who is at the end of their rope and they feel hopeless, and they may or may not believe in God? What is a takeaway? How do they get started to see him, hear him, and have hope?
Right. I think the most difficult thing to do is shut out the noise. God says, be still and know that I am God. And he says, if you seek me with all your heart, you will find me. So, most of the time, the reason we're struggling to connect with him is because we're so distracted by so many things. And if you can find a still moment to connect with him and just say, I'm here. And I have to tell you, Julie, this is the craziest thing. This morning, just this morning, I was praying that very thing. I was like, Lord, I am your servant. I want you to open doors for me that I can't open for myself. And would you believe within 2 hours, I received an email from my publicist that said, Julie wants to connect with you today. And it was just such an answer to prayer, right from today. And so I would encourage anyone who's listening to just be still, get a place where you say to God, I want to know you. Help me. Help me get to know you. And open his word. His word is a guiding light for us. And so when you begin to understand how he speaks to you through his word and through his people and through circumstances, then you can begin to have deeper conversations with him as well.
I have a confession before we go. When I, quote unquote, lose my cell phone, I'm at my happiest.
Oh
I
man,
was
that's amazing.
kinda I was kind of really not happy when airplanes suddenly developed technology so you could always be connected. I'm like, "No, no, no. No, 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 no. I don't want anyone to connect with me except God, or maybe just go
Oh,
to sleep." So, any
it's
final
hilarious. Yeah.
I'm like, "I I can't find it. No, I
You
can't."
are so right. You're so right. I will confess that I grew up in West Virginia, and for the longest time, when I went home, I would have no service for a couple of days. It was that far out in the woods. And so then Elon Musk came along and created Starlink, and everyone there has Starlink now. And so suddenly they're all connected, even though we're out in the. So I do miss that, but there are still some places. I If you need to go somewhere and be disconnected, I can take you there.
And by the way, we can always make that choice to leave it in
Yes.
the room,
So good.
right? God gives
Yeah.
us our free will, like, "Nope, I'm just gonna sit here and be still and talk to you, God." Um,
Good.
the final moments, is there anything that we didn't cover that is on your heart that you wanna share with anyone who's listening right now?
Oh, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I just want to say that if you're in one of those deep, dark valleys where you just don't know what to do, I really believe the subtitle of Desperate Prayers is embracing the power of prayer in life's darkest moments. I have been in some of those really dark moments, watching a child suffer slowly, slowly, and then die. Those are some of the darkest moments of my life. But what I can tell you is you may not understand how, but God's peace and God's presence is available to you. And so, if you will just make that choice to open yourself to Him, I know that He will meet you right where you are.
Rachel Wojo, podcaster, author, latest book called Desperate Prayers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julie.